Hello, my name is Pej. I'm a drug interventionist. I help people with addiction and substance abuse problems as well as alcoholism. Um, Today, the topic is going to be what it feels like to be a drug addict. And I can say this from experience. It's really interesting. Like they asked me to come up with different topics for the YouTube channel. And today, this is obviously one that I have a lot of experience with. There's a lot of times throughout my life where I felt uncomfortable in my skin, and I definitely needed something that would numb me or make me feel good or get me out of myself, that would make me feel more lively. So it's not like drug addiction just came easy. I do believe that it started with drinking a little bit. It was with alcohol, and obviously, if you do alcohol repetitively, then you're addicted to it, and it's a drug. No matter how you look at it, it's still a drug. It's a substance, and at first it was just with little sips here and there, but then it became, actual drinking to the point where I had such a good time, and I danced better. I felt better. I was more lively. I was laughing. And so alcohol was just something that I first started experimenting with, and then it became marijuana. Marijuana, obviously, a lot of people think that it's not addictive, or because it's not physically addictive, like you don't always need it, but definitely if you do marijuana repetitively over and over again, it can be seen as a mental addiction, or something that you rely on to keep you in good spirits. And so for myself, weed it's what everybody was doing. People were smoking pot back in high school, and I caught wind of it, and I started doing it too. I did it actually in junior high school. That's where I first ever tried it, and then I got really heavily into it in high school. The kids would sometimes go behind schools. Behind the school, there was a smoking area, and that's where we would go to do other things. And so, started to do it quite regularly, and it worked for a long time. It really helped me, helped increase my moods. I really loved that very much. It made me happy. It enhanced movies. It enhanced music. It made it all sound better. It made me go a little bit deeper. But I started chasing other types of addictions too. Obviously during high school, we had the hallucination phase where we were trying to, go to the other side, go to the other world. And it wasn't like I really got totally addicted to hallucinogens, except for I was doing acid here and there, and then I was doing mushrooms too. And I didn't depend upon those. Weed was a way of life for a long time. It was when I started to get into stimulants, where we had caught wind of somebody who was doing cocaine, and he had gotten his hands on some. So then we started doing that with him, and I knew right away. I knew if I do this stuff, I learned it in health class, that one time I try it, I am hooked. I'm probably going to be hooked, and sure enough, it surely happened. I did it, and I couldn't get enough of it. And next thing you know, I became dependent upon it, and I kept chasing after it, and we would do it all the time. It wasn't like I was doing it. It was first just a weekend thing, and it went hand in hand with alcohol. So already, I'm loving alcohol, and when I do cocaine, it was a stimulant that would just keep me going all night long. And then, we wouldn't have a good time without it. So I knew at that point I was addicted. I really needed it all of the time, and we took it to the next level. We started to cook it up. And when we would cook it up, we would freebase Coke. And this is during the 80s. And that just captivated me. At that point, I became a slave. I couldn't get enough of it. And I started moving on into other drugs. And, throughout my life, I got into a lot of meth. Meth was pretty much the one that had me stuck. I did do it in my early 20s for about 3 years. And then I knew that this is not good. I my conscience told me this is not good. I need to get off of this stuff. But I was still, engulfed in other drugs. I was doing ecstasy. I was doing everything from GHB. We even did Rush. There was this stuff called Rush that was like an instant high that was short-lived. It would be for about 10 minutes and then you were done. and we would do all kinds of other, designer drugs, experimental drugs, Special K. And so pretty much like I was a drug addict. Like there's no other way of looking at it. I was addicted to doing drugs, however that may be. And what did it feel like to be on all of them? Well, because I didn't discriminate against any kind of drugs, I would either go higher, low, or left or right, or whatever would make me feel any way to where I wouldn't have to feel normal. For a long time, we would just do it for, just for the simple fact that it gave us pleasure, right? It got us, depending on where we were going. If we were going to the nightclub, we would like to drink and we'd like to do cocaine. If we were going to Tijuana, we would love to drink all night long and do all kinds of stimulants. If we were going to a rave, we wanted stuff that would lift our spirits and make us just be just in love with everything and everybody. And for a long time, like I did a lot of ecstasy, and during the 90s and doing ecstasy, it was kind of like, like a mind fuck. Like I would totally like Thursday night, here we come into a weekend. I really want to do this. Friday, I would go do it, and I would start doing it, and it would just be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday became the after party, and then we'd go to the after party after the after party. And if the ecstasy was wearing off, or we did plenty of it throughout the weekend, I would do a little bit of meth, and that would just like kick it back in and get me going again. And what happens with that is when my body was starting to go like at 100 miles an hour, and then I'm doing other stuff to kind of like slow it down, like just slow my roll, just to chill a little bit. I'm basically like doing 100 miles per hour in my thought process and physically, and all of a sudden I'm just slamming on the brakes and I'm doing other stuff that'll just like keep me, at peace and to take the edge off, whether I was doing some kind of benzo or something like that to take the edge off. I was doing anything and everything, and I was always either inebriated, annihilated, under the influence of something, and that was a way of life. And there was a lot of depressive thoughts. There was a lot of days when I was coming down off of things, especially when I did a lot of opiates. It was, emotional. It was also physical. Like there was a lot of physical pains I was enduring, and just thinking like, well, I never want to do this again. I need to get off of this. When you're withdrawing super hard off of opiates, there's nothing fun about it. But like you either need to go like completely off of it and not really knowing how to do that, completely get off of them, or you got to get more opiates to keep on having that euphoria that it's like indescribable, the type of euphoria that opiates will give you. It just takes you into another world and you can't get enough of it. It's like the ultimate bliss. It's like rolling your eyes in the back of your head type of bliss to the point where you never want it to end. Unfortunately, the high does end, and then you either need to get more or you need to try to get off. And that's why I see like a lot of people will go to detox and try to get off of it because they know that it's just ruining your life. I knew while being on drugs throughout my 20s especially that my life isn't working for me. There was a lot of great indicators of unmanageability that were happening to me during that time, to where I thought my life's not working. I know I need to get off of this stuff. During my early 20s, I was selling drugs, and pretty much I was my own enabler. So when I was selling drugs, I had plenty of them. I was like a drugstore cowboy. But the problem is that when you start getting high off your own supply and you become your own best customers, you can't really manage the drug dealing business. So again, that's where a lot of wreckage was created. I was starting to lose things. I was getting evicted from an apartment. I lost my car. I lost relationships. People started backing away from me, and it was because my behavior wasn't that of one that anyone really wanted to be around or wanted to get along with. So, addiction is really crazy. And why did I want to get off of it? Is because I knew my life wasn't working. Did I know how? No, I didn't get sober till the time I was 35, 36 years old. There was plenty of things that I was doing that surrounded itself around drug use and alcoholism, to where I would end up in jails and institutions and many dangerous near-death experiences. And still, none of that. When I'm in the grips of my addiction and it has me and it's more powerful than me, there's no stopping. There just is no stopping. When I try to stop one thing, like replace one drug with another drug, I'm still doing drugs. So there's There's no sobriety. When I have no concept of recovery and sobriety, then how do I know what that even means to become completely abstinent and sober and live comfortably? I'm convinced when I'm on drugs and alcohol, there is no way of being no other way of living. Like I can't be comfortable in my own skin. And sometimes the anxiety that I would get, I feel like I just wanted to like just jump out of my skin when I was on drugs, especially like the meth. Like there was times when I'd be on the freeway and I'd be so frustrated with my life and with everything that was going on in my life and everything that wasn't going on that I would just grip the steering wheel. I was delirious. I hadn't slept in days, and I would scream at the top of my lungs, I hate this. I hate my life. I can't stand this. Why is my life not working out for me? And, you know, there was car accidents. There was a lot of car accidents because I would doze off behind the wheel. I nodded off. I was the king of nodding off. I mean, I sat with a friend at dinner one day and I fell asleep right at the dinner table. And she asked me if I was narcoleptic. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, you're falling asleep right at the table. And this was like a common occurrence, just always getting high, always depending upon some kind of stimulant that would help me go up or something that would bring me down or something that would just level me. And there was never a sweet spot. I do know that there were certain drugs that I used, like ecstasy, for example, where because I got really super high off that first time, I always chased that one feeling. And it was never as good or never the same. And yeah, I'm not going to lie. There was sometimes we'd get a good batch of something like some ecstasy or like some heroin or, opium. I got really hooked on opium. Like where you'd get a good batch and you get that feeling, but it was always temporary. It wasn't like you would feel it, to where you could get that feeling every single time. It was temporary. And then I would keep chasing that. And I'd find myself not just a slave to the drugs, but a slave to the dealer, a slave to the process of trying to hook up. During the time that I was selling drugs, I was addicted to making money, the thrill of being able to go out and dispense certain types of drugs to certain people and having them answer to me, having them come to me, having them give me things, having their girlfriends come to me, like certain people's girlfriends come to me behind their boyfriend's back and, doing things with me so that they could get what they needed, going to strip clubs. I'd go to strip clubs and I knew in my heart of hearts, like these are broken women. Like I already know that each one of them has a story, but that there was a thrill to having them like come to me and depend upon me to give them something so that they could feel more comfortable in going up on stage and dancing or even doing privates or doing all the other stuff they were doing with men, behind closed doors or in their cars or homes. And so, but during all this time, my ego and you want to call it a disease, you want to call it drug addiction. When I was doing it, it was just a lifestyle, and it was what I was all about. There was no other way of seeing life than under the influence of something. So I'd wake up in the morning if I even slept the night before, and I would go right towards whatever I could get to get me going throughout the day. If it was some kind of stimulant that I depended upon, then I would do it. I'd go to job interviews when I needed to find a job at one point under the influence. And if I actually landed the job in the interview, I thought, see, look how good I am on this drug, right? And then often I would look at myself in the mirror as I was doing certain drugs and I'd think, you're a drug addict. You need to stop. And I'd make these like stupid, false agreements with myself that I'm going to quit. And I'd call myself the Monday man. This is the weekend. On Monday, I'm going to stop. And the next thing you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm still going hard. I'm still doing it. It was just a way of life. And I don't think there was many times where I couldn't find anything or I didn't know how to get drugs. I always knew how to obtain drugs. I always knew how to keep my addiction going no matter what. I didn't even have to really steal to be able to nurture my addiction. I was very calculated in the way I worked. I was devious. I was underground. I was living in the underbelly of the beast, and I wasn't, living a wholesome life. And so, living as an addict when you're really in the throes of your disease and your addiction and alcoholism is not a comfortable way of living. I really did not like the way I felt a lot of times. I really did not like that people knew I was messed up. I was fucked up. Like they knew I was fucked up. And my ego would just tell me, well, I don't care. I don't want them in my life anyway, and I would just push people away from me, or I would just act a certain way where nobody wanted to be around me. And that's just no way to live. So how did I get out of it? I mean, I often say this. My biggest fear in life was to actually raise my hands and ask somebody for help. There's a lot of help out there. I'm readily available. I'll make myself available for anybody that really wants to change their life. If you're addicted to drugs and alcohol, or just alcohol, or you have a loved one that might be suffering, or there's mental health in the mix, I'm always here for you. I would love to be able to help you. Please reach out. This is where you can push, or you can push right there, or you can push over here, or you can push right there.